Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I'm joined by Jordyn Levine, marketing coordinator at DLC. And today, Jordyn is going to be interviewing me, so the roles are reversed. Jordyn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So I'll turn it over to you, Jordyn. You take over.
All right. Thanks so much. And I think I just wanted to kind of go over some burning questions I had for you. So ever since joining DLC, I've been here since November, so still relatively new. I realize that there's so much more to retail real estate than I've ever imagined. And the more I learn, the more questions I have. So today, just thought it'd be fun to ask you. I've been very curious, and some come from conversations we've had, some come from producing past episodes of Retail Retold, and some are just from being at DLC every day. So I just want to hear your thoughts on them.
Go.
All right. I was surprised when you mentioned that only 16.9% of U.S. retail sales happen online. And that completely changed how I think about retail. Everyone I've told since that conversation would guess that it's in at least 70% for e-commerce sales, and it's not. So my question for you is, why do you think people overestimate how much shopping happens online?
I think there's a few reasons. I think the first reason is in October, before you were at DLC, if I said retail to you, what did that mean to you?
Probably just stores, like clothing stores.
Right. So I think generally people put retail in this things that I want to have category versus need to have category. And I think for so long, retail was kind of synonymous with the mall and the type of shopping that happens at a mall. And, you know, the biggest retail shop we have in America is the grocery shop. And I think people don't necessarily think about the grocery shop as, going, as retail. And so I think that's one of the big ones right there, is just what do people consider retail? And then if you just look at the grocery shop today, the average online delivery is somewhere, depending on what source you read, somewhere in the 15% to 25% more than if you go to the grocery store. And so I think consumers crave value. I think that's sticker shock for a lot of people. And even when they waive fees and they do stuff, it's still more to get your groceries delivered to the house.
Right.
Here's the thing that people don't really know is that McKinsey's done a bunch of reports, or at least one report on this, and there's been others where grocers lose like $5 to $13 on average per delivery. So, and that's not all grocers, and that's not every delivery. Those are averages. But if you just think about that, like it's not always a great win for the grocer, and the consumer has to pay more. That's a significant cost to convenience. And so I think it just ends up being a way that, well, people end up going to the grocery store. And that's a meaningful part of retail sales. And then you have all the other things that are, that people still go to shopping centers for. And I think those are some of the reasons that people don't realize that majority of retail sales still happen in a store. I think people also think in terms of trips. So if Amazon comes multiple times a week to your house, but it's not big orders, it might be little things, couple, $20 product here, $30 product there. But then you go to the retail store and you might get more value but spend more dollars to go to a bunch of different stores or just your grocery shop on a weekly basis might be more than alone what you got delivered to your house.
Do you think that every grocer should offer delivery?
I don't think every retailer should offer delivery or needs to offer delivery. I think that I start with the premise that the CEO of DLC, Adam Ifshin, says you can't make money in clicks without the bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of my favorite quotes. And so there's a place for omni-channel retailing and meeting the consumer where they want to be met. That's like the famous line, right? Whether they want to shop online, they want to shop in the store. I think there's certainly value, and they're working on figuring out ways with automation and AI to bring the cost of individual delivery to the home for all products, whether it's drones or whatever
I've
you
seen
read
that,
about,
yeah.
right? To try to make it more cost effective. But so do I think, I don't think everyone needs to be an e-commerce platform.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a purpose to your store. I think that's more the question.
Fair point. So back to that value point you made, because I know that you and Adam talk about creating value all the time, and that's kind of DLC's main motto, is that we offer value to the consumer. We're creating that in communities. So I feel like people usually equate value with low prices, but I get a sense that it's definitely bigger than that. So is it bigger than that? Is it more than low prices?
I think, sure. I do think that, Americans and just people in general love to get a great deal, right?
Yeah, who doesn't?
Right. So there is that. But I think value is, definitely exceeding someone's expectations, and low price providers typically do that. And that's what I think, like, in value retailing, because it could be some crazy experience that you got, that value was provided. Mm-hmm. It could be that you bought something for a price that you thought and felt was a great deal. It might be that the service was unbelievable in the store and you loved the, ability to talk to an associate about the product you were purchasing, and it wasn't, a chatbot online that was talking to you that you were running in circles with. It was a human being. So, yeah, I think value does mean more than price. I think price is a big contributor of value, though.
Yeah. What would you say one retailer that's redefining value is?
I think there's a lot of great value retailers in the world today, and in particular in America. So I think of a bunch. I think, some that come to mind. I think Walmart's just been amazing at this. I think Costco's doing a great job. Trader Joe's is doing a great job. But the list goes on. I can name a lot of retailers: TJX Concepts, Ross, Burlington, Five Below. You said redefining value. I think they're all like redefining value in their own way. They've all become, in a post-COVID world, a lot of the value retailers have all become like such better retailers, such better at retailing. And so I think that's made for stronger shopping centers, and I think that's made for better experiences for the consumer.
So with that being said, as a consumer, I tend to look at stores individually. Before I started working at DLC, I never looked at a shopping center and really thought anything of it besides, it has all my favorite places. But from a landlord's perspective, you're creating an entire ecosystem with these tenants. So how do you decide which retailers belong together?
So I think the first thing you have to do is you have to look at the dirt and what purpose should this property have. Mm-hmm. And then once you do that, then the specific retailers and tenants that go into that property become a lot easier to see. But I think the first step is determining what should this property be. Is where it's located, does it make it a regional destinational draw? Is it a convenience-oriented property? Is it going to be, should it be something because of where it sits and who lives there and the other pieces of real estate around it, like office or hotels, and this should really be more of a lifestyle type component. Once you figure out what the fundamental dirt should be, then the specific tenants that go into that shopping center become a lot more visible.
Do you think that every landlord and management company should have different types of centers in their portfolio? Like you said, lifestyle, or, just a regular strip mall kind of situation?
I mean, in today's environment, I would say by and large, so retail is definitely the most diverse asset class with the most subcategories. You have enclosed mall owners, you have grocery and power center owners like us, you have owners that focus on unanchored strip centers, you have convenience store owners. And so you said the word should. I don't know. What's definitely happened is people certainly have specialized in a subsector of retail, because learning about all the different types of retail and being able to execute at a high level on all of them, because they're all, some are similar, but some have very different, are very different, not just on operate, relationships needed, all these things, I think makes it tough to be, just a general retail owner,
Right.
At scale.
I think DLC has a great portfolio, if I do say so myself. So we're doing pretty good there. I just want to touch on the social media and e-commerce topic again. So we know that 82% of consumers discover products on social media, and 55% of Gen Z has bought something after seeing it on social media. Do you think that social media has become the new storefront?
Today, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think social media is the new commercial, the new TV commercial.
I think that's a great point.
So I think it is, I think when big brands advertise and they get, it becomes a TikTok craze, I think that's the new TV commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily the new storefront. I don't think it serves all the purposes that a physical store does, but I do think it is the new TV commercial.
I would agree with that, actually. I think when there's a trend, people go crazy for it, and it draws consumers into whoever is making that product, and it serves them well. So I think that's very well said. Do you think that social media can actually influence where a retailer decides to open its next store?
I think yes, I think there's a lot of digital information that impacts where retailers site select. Mm-hmm. Since the proliferation of e-commerce, one of the ones is where, because we're, e-commerce brands were shipping to individual homes, they know where most of their customers online are. So then you go, well, there's two ways you can go about it. Do I start with a store there because people know me and they know my, my product, my
Right.
brand, who I am? Or do you say, well, what's another market like that I want to go get new customers and put a store there? And so there's a lot of, digital information, right? The biggest piece that's been over the last decade that's grown, that's given retailers significant information, and that's clearly impacted site selection, is loyalty programs.
Love a loyalty program.
Because this brings it a step further, and just not where they live and what they like, mm-hmm. and preferences and different types of products, and they learn a lot about their consumer in that regard from loyalty programs. And so I think that a lot of digital information has impacted site selection, for sure.
Do you think that AI will ever impact site selection?
I would say there's definitely a lot of way. I think we're just scratching the surface. But yeah, AI clearly, because of how fast and how much information it can synthesize and aggregate, is going to be an assist in site selection. What AI can't do that I think is still, there's art and science in site selection, and what AI can't do yet is feel what the market feels like. And I think that, that is something that art of site selection that is still going to have to be done by humans and really get that unbelievable context. Is it going to help in site selection? 100%. When you go and you stand in front of a building, that part in your gut of like, this just feels right. Like when you're going house hunting and you stand in a empty living room and you say, you know what, this just doesn't feel right. Right? AI is not going to be able to give you that feeling anytime soon.
Right.
It might be able to produce what are the comps in the market, what did all the other houses sell for. It might be able to produce, other markets that have similar housing stock, things like that. But is it going to be able to like give you that feeling of like, when you lay eyes on something? I'm not so sure. Now, that's not the only thing left for humans to do, but that was just an example I could give that I think where I say it's still art and science when it comes to site selection.
I mean, I think as it should be, though. Like, I think everything, especially in retail real estate, yes, you could get that data from AI, and like you said, it could assist, but it's not like a personal thing of like, oh, I feel great in this area, I want to be in this area.
Sure. Like I said, I think there's a lot that the human beings still are superior to AI when it comes to, in particular, to site selection. That was just something, right? Like artificial intelligence can't feel yet. Maybe one day it will, but it can't.
That'd be
today.
crazy.
Yeah.
That I would pay to see that. So in terms of some retailers getting things right, you've mentioned that you're a fan of Five Below, what they're doing, and now we're seeing concepts like Miniso. What are those retailers getting right?
I mean, I think the stores are fun.
Love a Five Below. I've never been into a Miniso, but Five Below, big fan.
They have the art of discovery for sure. I think that they also are. I always think about concepts that are hot trends for products that don't have a national rollout, like a category killer. And when Toys R Us, Toys are a big retail, went away, I think it left a lot of room. A lot of that business went to Target, Walmart, Amazon. But when Toys R Us and others, when Toys R Us went away, it left a lot of room for someone like, you just sit back and go, is there a place in America for a national toy brand? Well, I think Five Below tweaked that a bit, and they were like, there's definitely a place for, no one's catering to tweens, that 6 to 14-year-old person. And there was probably a place for that, and they've executed really well, and Miniso's, growing as well. So I think you always think about like what should be a national rollout brand but isn't. I think of things that and some of them are hard to scale, right? Like, but you take easy examples, right? Like Americans loved burgers. McDonald's realized that burgers could work nationally, and you woke up 40, 50 years later and McDonald's is everywhere. And so you think about like some other things that are starting to grow, like, pet industry has grown significantly, and there's been a bunch of brands like trying to open up vet clinics nationally, right? But for a long time, the vet world, you went to your local
Yeah.
vet, and a lot of people still do that, but there's no real national veterinarian clinic brand. And should that be something that could be scaled nationally? And I always think about things like that could be from a retail presence, that where is there a missing piece but isn't rolled out nationally yet?
I was a big fan of Toys R Us, and I think that retailers like Five Below are doing a great job following in their footsteps, but creating their own brand at the same time, because that's essential. But I want to touch on why physical retail still wins. You've said that there's no clicks without the bricks. So, but if Amazon can deliver something to my door tomorrow, got Prime, right? What advantage does physical retail still have that technology hasn't been able to replace?
So I think one is value. I think it is, for most, if we just separate out Amazon, it is hard for e-commerce to produce the same value in price to a consumer as the physical store. I think grocery is a good example of this. But if you lay out the economics evenly, and we're charging for shipping and we're charging for returns, it starts to get really daunting to provide the same value to the customer online as it is in the store. So there's a value currently there's a cost, but that cost is rising at the moment of convenience to the consumer. Two is discovery. People love discovering products in a store. I think three is taction. People love to touch it and feel it. Four, I think is the experience of, and I try not to get caught up in the experience piece, but there is a piece of that which is the experience. I think five for me is immediate gratification. And the store, and again, it's what is retail. If you're driving on the road and you're thirsty, are you going to order something online, or are you going to drive into the convenience store and buy a bottle of water?
Gotta get the water.
Right? And so I think people, what is retail? I come back to that piece, right? And I think it's hard for me to envision, driving down the road. What's going to happen? I'm driving down the road. I'm going to open my window and a drone's going to fly in and deliver me the water. Maybe. I don't know.
Crazy world that would be.
I don't know if that's the case, but I think I'm still stopping for a bottle of water or an Arizona iced tea at that point in time. I think so. Those are the five. I think, value, discovery, taction, immediate gratification, and experience are why I think physical retail is here for a long time.
I think that honestly just goes to show you that there is so much more to retail than me personally I thought, and I'm sure that a lot of people don't necessarily think of. Like I said, clothing before, but retail is so much more than that. And with that being said, there's so much to learn from this industry. So I do want to touch on some advice for someone who's very new to this. So if you were 22, let's go back, and you were just entering retail real estate today, what would you focus on learning first?
I think the first thing I would focus on retail real estate is understanding, the basic people skills, right? There's negotiation, there's communication, there's the psychology. There is a lot that goes into, it is a people business in retail real estate. So there's that. I think one simple thing is how do trade areas function is, I think, really important to understanding retail real estate. So, you go into a market. What does the road network look like? Where do the people live in that market? Where is the office real estate located? Where's the industrial real estate located? Where's the retail located? Why is it located in these parts? And when you start to learn how to evaluate trade areas, that starts to really help you understand retail real estate more, for sure.
So, as someone who's, again, just entering the industry, I'm curious, and I'm going to throw in the generational perspective here. Do you think that Gen Z brings a different perspective to retail real estate? And if so, where do you think we have an advantage?
My goodness.
Or maybe it's a disadvantage.
I think it's a super specific question. I probably have too general of an answer. I think one, I think every generation brings a unique skill set to every industry they go into, right? Like, this generation was born into the world where cell phones were here already.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that creates, and by the time you were even a toddler, e-commerce was, something that was practiced by many already. And so I think having the perspective of entering a world where cell phones were the norm, smartphones were the norm, e-commerce plus physical retailing was the norm, brings unique perspectives for sure, right? I remember the days when I was saying, there is no way I'm ever going to go from a BlackBerry to an iPhone. Why would I do that?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. We were born into technology. Like, it wasn't something that, I was born in 2003. So, I didn't have a phone in my hand all the time. But then growing up, I had an iPod, and then iPhones came out, and it's just, we've always been surrounded by technology. So I think, if I do say so myself, it's a good skill to have, just being more familiar with technology. And I think it's a great asset for any person to have, no matter what age, is becoming familiar with technology, because it's changing so rapidly. So that being said, though, what part of retail do you think is about to change the fastest over the next decade?
So I think the thing that, when you look back in 10 years, I think the thing that people aren't talking about is, I think the physical store will be more valuable than it is today to retailers. One, I think the value proposition is going to continue to be strongest in a physical store. I think, too, in a really even more AI digital world, I believe human connection with your customer is going to be super important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the store as media is going to continue to be more and more real as from a brand and marketing piece, and the different things that retailers are going to be able to do with that physical piece of real estate are going to make stores much more valuable to the retailers today in 10 years than they are today. And they're pretty valuable today to the retailers. So it's one of the reasons I like retail real estate, is I think the value of the store to the store owner is going to continue to grow, not decline, with the ability to get products in an hour or 2 hours.
We could look back on this in 10 years and see where we at with that, because I think it's true. Stores are so important, and some people crave that human interaction. Some people don't want that, and that's fine. But it's crucial in today's world that we hone in on those personal skills, and we get to shopping.
So that's from the consumer perspective. If you look at the other way, it's important for the retailer to have a connection with their customer. And so, if my point is, whether that person wants to or not, it's really important for the retailer to be able to create a connection with their customer. And that's why I said it's going to make stores more valuable to retailers.
If you could teach everyone in retail one lesson that would make them better tomorrow, what would it be?
I think one of the things that, to me, I've learned over my career in retail real estate is definitely be curious before you're certain. That's what I would say, right? Like, you asked a bunch of your friends what percentage of retail sales are online, and they're certain it's 70%.
Shocked. They're shocked.
And then you tell them it's, 17% or 16% or whatever it is that quarter, and they're shocked. And so my point would be curious before you're certain.
You said that physical stores fuel digital sales.
Yep.
So what do you think would make a digitally native brand want to go into a store?
I'll start, like, one of the famous stories that happened is that, and this is an old one, but it was a light bulb for a lot of people as e-commerce was going, is I think Saks closed their Mall of America store, which is in Minnesota. And the stat is like they lost like 80% of their e-commerce sales in the state of Minnesota after closing that store. So that kind of was like a catalyst for people realizing there's a connection between the physical and digital stores. And so I think the first thing is, when you say that, is the store is where the profit is. And I think if you look at and you and I have before, at the largest e-commerce businesses in America, most of them are physical store. Yes. Most people recognize them as physical store owners or physical store retailers. So in general, it is hard to scale profitably online only. And so one of the reasons that you end up wanting to go from digitally only to physical is because the cost of infrastructure of a physical store, the entry point might be more. But once you have that entry point, the consistent profitability of that is easier than to replicate online. Now, I say that at scale is key, right? If you and I want to open a t-shirt shop, we could figure out a way to make that profitable and make a few bucks online. But if you want to scale that to a major sizable business, it's very hard to do profitably. I often say, like, please someone show me the north of $100 million revenue business that is online only and also profitable. And what you find is very few people can give you a long list, if anyone on that list. And so there probably are some, I don't know who they are, but it's not a long list.
Right.
But the list of physical retailers over $100 million in revenue that are profitable is very long. So that's one. I think the other is all the reasons I said prior to why you want a store, right? Experience, human connection. Retailers want taction. Consumers want taction to be able to touch the product. I think that, immediate gratification for your consumer, all those reasons are reasons that a digitally native brand might want a store.
It's funny because if you look at a company like Warby Parker, and they're known for their digital glasses try-on, so you could take that into a store and actually try them on physically. But then do you think, because I believe they were one of the first to do that.
They were one of the iconic, D2C brands that ended up, direct-to-consumer brands that ended up opening physical stores. Yeah, they're one of the iconic ones.
So do you feel that the digital glasses try-on then kind of loses its oomph a bit? Because you could go to the store and just try them on?
I think what Warby Parker did that was good there is they met the consumer where they are. There were some that, were fine just digitally trying them on. There were some that wanted to go to the store to try them on. And then there were some that wanted to do both. And so I think that's the type of thing I think that when retailers are saying you got to meet the customer where they are, which is kind of like a buzz phrase that goes around a lot. I think that's like a good example of what that means.
Yeah, I mean, it really is the best of both worlds. I don't wear glasses, but if I did, I would love a little digital try on and being able to go into a store, because I don't know that it would necessarily look the same, but I love that they came up with that.
It would give me, like, I don't wear glasses either. I think the digital try on would be like, it would give me a framework of where to start.
Right.
And then when I went into the store, I'd have more, I'd be a much more knowledgeable consumer about what
idea.
Right. But I'd still want to try them on.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're really helping the consumer get down that funnel. So
yeah, for sure.
Good on them for that. So this has been great. My last question for you, the tables have been flipped this whole time, but let me ask, if we were lost in Target, which aisle would I find you in?
I would typically be, I might be in the sports card aisle where they have sports cards, which is usually by the front. If I wasn't there, I'd probably be in the electronics spot looking at some gadgets. Yes, gadgets.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today, and I appreciate you letting me flip the table on you.
This has been great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.